Her mother-in-law calls her son's ex her own daughter and tells her to step aside for the ex right in her own marriage. On Thanksgiving, her mother-in-law smiles like nothing is wrong. She calls the ex her daughter and parades a steaming pan. Zora's casserole gets carried to the garage without a word. The ex knots an apron that reads, Chef Sable. Laughter swells. Old stories fill the air. Inside jokes circle the table, shutting Zora out. She steadies her hand on her 12-week belly and breathes. The room polishes the past until it gleams. Zora stands. Her voice is firm. Family or the past? Choose. Forks stop mid-air. Someone mutters, It's just dinner. She does not sit. She will not fade. She reaches for her coat, and the chair legs scrape like thunder. The door waits. So does self-respect. If this strikes a nerve, type, I choose peace, share with one person who needs it, and stay for what comes next. They step into the cold. The door shuts behind them like a verdict. In the car, the heater fights the chill while silence fills the rest. The road hums. Zora stares at her hands and feels the echo of her own words, family or the past, still ringing in her chest. The line is new. The pattern is not. Her mind reels back to the first lunch years ago. It began with small cuts. Marlene lifted old stories like trophies. Sable baked better. Sable laughed easier. Sable understood the family. Zora told herself to be patient. Time would soften edges. Love would settle the room. But the mantle never changed. A framed photo of Sable sat there like a nameplate. Holidays came. The picture stayed. New memories formed, and yet the old face never moved. Zora brought flowers and desserts and gentle conversation. She played fair. The room played favorites. Each visit left a mark. A joke at her expense. A reminder that Sable knew the recipe the proper way. A glance that said guest, not family. Zora learned to smile through it. She learned to breathe through it. The smiling hurt more than the words. Patience became a leash. Tonight, it finally snapped. Zora arrived with a small gift and a steady smile. Marlene answered the door and offered a soft, loose handshake. Her eyes slid to Zora's bag. A quick up and down. The judgment was quiet and efficient. "You're so articulate," Marlene said. "Where did you pick up that confidence?" The question wore perfume. The sting came later. She asked if Zora rented or owned. She mentioned how hard the market is without family help. Sable dropped in at the end of the meal. She teased a memory about their old country club. "They really vet members," she said, looking past Zora as if screening her. Marlene laughed like a bell. Zora smiled because that was the rule. She asked about recipes. She asked about neighborhood parks. She tried to map a future inside this home. The answers came coded with proper and classic and our standards. On the drive back, Zora told herself it was nerves, first impressions, a bad read. But the words clung to her like smoke. She could not air them out. The pattern settled in. One Sunday, Zora walked in with a salad bowl and found Sable at the table. No warning. No context. Marlene beamed as if the credits were rolling on a favorite film. Sable stood and hugged Evan for a full minute. Zora counted out of shock. The room seemed to ask her to pretend it was fine. Marlene waved Zora toward the living room. "Relax," she said. "You're a guest today." Sable moved into the kitchen and opened drawers without asking. She knew where everything lived. She slid into a chair Marlene called her spot. Inside, jokes did the rest. Trips, songs, a broken-down car that turned into a sunrise. Laughter ran on rails Zora could not see. She lifted her fork and tasted the distance. Later, in the car, she said it hurt. Evan said he would talk to his mother. He tried. The next week, it happened again. Zora told herself to last until the engagement. Surely a new chapter would reset the story. Surely a ring would mean family. The party sparkled. Zora wore a soft dress and hope. Marlene worked the room. She had a camera ready and a schedule in hand. Then she introduced Sable as co-host. The word hung there like a verdict. Sable tapped a glass and spoke to the crowd. "I'm so happy he found someone," she said. "No one will ever know him like I do." The line drew a clean circle around the past and left Zora outside it. Marlene filmed every second. Faces smiled. A few glanced at Zora, then away. Evan stood stiff beside her. He muttered that he did not approve of the speech. He said he would fix it later. Later never came. On the mantel, the same photo watched the cake get cut. Zora swallowed tears and thanked guests. She boxed leftovers. She washed the last glass. When the lights went out, she lay awake and recited promises. Be gracious. Be kind. Hold on. Holding on kept the peace. It did not keep her whole. The next milestone would test that truth and tear through the polite surface. But the signs were there long before that party. Weeks before the engagement party, the hierarchy shows its face. Marlene waves Sable through the country club gate with a warm, family nod. Zora trails behind with a gift bag and her name on the guest list. The attendant checks the tablet, then shakes his head. Guest list is full. The sentence lands like a stamp. Marlene offers a sweet shrug. Rules are rules. Sable touches Zora's arm and whispers, "Another time," then disappears under a chandelier. Zora waits on a bench by a trimmed hedge. She listens to distant glasses clink. She scrolls her phone to stay calm. Minutes turn into an hour. When they emerge, Marlene beams and holds a glossy photo of Sable under the club crest. Later, that photo finds a home on the mantel. Another frame beside the family portraits. The message is simple and expensive. Belonging costs. Some doors open for our kind. Some smiles are keys. Zora counts the price in silence. Not money. Dignity. The bill grows every visit. And it will follow her into the biggest day of her life. The ceremony is soft and bright. Zora watches vows form in the air and land gently. Then the seating cards speak a harsher truth. Marlene has Sable placed at the family table. A small white card with a last name that is not hers. Zora feels heat rise and tastes metal. She tells Evan she will walk out if the card stays. Her voice does not tremble. He sees the line and finally steps over to her side. He removes the card himself. He asks staff to move Sable. For once, the room witnesses a shift. Sable arrives in a blazing red dress and cries through the vows. Loud, messy, and impossible to ignore. Cameras catch every frame. Sympathy drifts her way like confetti. Zora holds her bouquet and her posture. She thanks guests and keeps breathing. When the cake is cut, she sees the mantel in her mind. She thinks of the country club photo. She thinks of cost. That night, she tells herself the ring has weight. Maybe the weight will change the table. It doesn't. The next holiday scrapes the wound raw. The kitchen glows. Zora brings her stuffing, baked with care, carried like a peace offering. Marlene smiles and lifts a different dish. Sable's famous stuffing, she says. She slides Zora's pan into the garage fridge without a pause. The title of famous does the work of 100 insults. The table fills with praise for Sable's recipe. Light, proper, not so heavy. Zora swallows water and looks down at her hands. Her eyes blur and the hallway tilts. In the bathroom, she bites a towel to quiet the sob. Her face is hot. Her chest is tight. She thinks of her baby, 12 weeks small, and begs her pulse to slow. Evan finds her and calls it just food. The words crack something she was still defending. She walks back to the table, sits, and hears laughter float above her head. She does not taste a bite. She counts breaths and seconds. She plots survival. After dishes and distant goodbyes, the car is a small raft. Zora holds the wheel even as Evan drives. The next Sunday, she chooses herself. The ultimatum is already forming on her tongue. The stories begin the moment they sit. Marlene lists Sable's promotions and her new house. She brags about traditions that Sable gets. Sable smiles and suggests a trip to Italy. Like we planned back then, as friends, of course. It is bait wrapped in nostalgia. Zora places her hand on her belly. She says it clearly, for the first time to the whole room. She is 12 weeks pregnant. The table goes still, but only for a beat. Then Marlene pivots and calls for a family trip anyway. The word clangs. Family. Zora lifts her face and speaks the line that will change everything. Family or the past. Choose. Silence stretches. Someone laughs to break it. The laugh dies quick. Zora pushes her chair back. Evan rises with her. She waits one heartbeat for someone to meet her halfway. No one does. She walks out into cold air and feels it scorch. In the car, she shakes. She is not fragile. She is furious. The choice is on the table now, and so is their child. Safety is no longer a courtesy. It is a condition. Phones explode that night. Calls stack one after another. Marlene leaves voicemails that start with tears and end with orders. 43 missed calls by dawn. Zora's stomach clenches with each buzz. She turns the phone face down and stares at the ceiling. In the morning, the confirmation arrives without words. Arthur says little. His silence is heavy. The message behind it is worse. Marlene has chosen Sable. She wants a family meeting. She wants compliance. Zora sits at the table and feels the edges of the world narrow. Then the strike. A relative relays the news like weather. Sable is pregnant. She says the baby is Evan's. The room goes sideways. Zora's hand shakes so hard she almost drops her phone. She hears roaring in her ears. She asks Evan for truth. Not comfort, not promises. Evidence. He pulls up calendars. He scrolls locations. He hands over statements. She writes a timeline with a shaking pen and refuses to cry. The cliff opens beneath them, and she stares straight down. If the truth is solid, it will hold. If it is not, she will not fall with it. They sit at the table because truth needs a flat surface. Zora asks for evidence, not comfort. Evan unlocks everything. Calendar first, every dinner, every trip, every hour that could matter, then messages. Nothing answered. Nothing private. He scrolls location history. Pins bloom on a map. Work, home, gym, grocery. The same small orbit. Zora writes it all down. The pen shakes. She keeps writing. Dates, times, addresses, receipts. Each data point lands with a hard click. Each one a nail sealing the lid on doubt. Her chest says panic. Her hands choose logic. She asks the same question 3 ways and watches the answers hold. He opens statements. Restaurants with her. Gas near their street. Dry cleaning around the corner. No hotel spikes. No flowers sent to nowhere. 2 hours pass like miles. The table fills with pages. Her breath loosens by a thread. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But ground. She stares at the list and feels the room slow. The phone lights up again. She does not reach for it. Tonight, she will not chase voices. She will anchor to facts, and she will call for backup. The doorbell rings soft. Violet and Griffin step in with hoodies and tired eyes. They see the papers. They see Zora's face. Griffin picks up the notebook and reads. He speaks in the calm tone of a clean ledger. If she's pregnant, a test will say so. If it's his, a test will say so. We wait for facts. Zora wants to move. She wants to decide. The wanting feels like fire in her ribs. Violet sits close and takes her hand. Facts first. Decisions after. The phrase is a small raft. Zora climbs on. They go page by page. Griffin asks a few simple questions. He checks for gaps and finds none. He nods without drama. Violet makes tea. They do not drink. The house gets quiet except for the phone buzzing on the table. Zora does not answer. She repeats the mantra until the words stop shaking. Facts first. Decisions after. She looks at the clock. Tomorrow needs a plan. If this is real, it will stand a test. If it is a story, it will crack under it. Either way, she will not guess. The phone wins once. They put it on speaker. Marlene's voice floods the room. Tears, accusations, a family meeting now, responsibility, duty. She never says proof, she never says doctor, she just says come. Zora leans toward the phone. Her voice is steady. We need a dated ultrasound. We need medical records confirming pregnancy. We need written consent for a paternity test at birth. She lists them like a lock. Click, click, click. Marlene calls her cruel. She says a good man steps up. She says the word family like a weapon. Zora does not flinch. Evan takes the phone and repeats the terms, one by one, in a flat tone that leaves no edges to grab. Those are the conditions. We won't discuss anything else. Silence. Then anger. He ends the call. The room exhales, but the air stays heavy. Violet squeezes Zora's shoulder. Griffin nods once. The boundary is now spoken and real. It will hold, or it will be broken in the open. Zora looks at the stack of papers. Tomorrow, she will protect herself with more than words. In a small office downtown, a young attorney lays out the terrain. Custody, if needed. Support calculations, if needed. Division of assets, if needed. He says if every time, but the map still hurts. Zora listens and takes notes with careful hands. She asks about her rights as a pregnant spouse. She asks about safety. She asks about the house. He answers in plain language. Numbers become shapes. Week on, week off. Holidays split. 2 addresses for a child who is not born yet. Zora presses her palm against her belly and feels her throat tighten. The attorney slows down. First step is proof, he says. We demand medical records. We demand testing. You make no permanent decisions until facts arrive. He hands her a folder. Inside are templates, timelines, and a short list of next moves. The weight of the folder is more bearable than the weight in her chest. She thanks him. She pays the fee. She walks out with paper armor. On the sidewalk, the wind cuts clean. She texts the plan to Violet. She texts a shorter version to herself. Then she heads to the appointment that decides a different kind of risk. The cuff tightens around her arm. The number is high. The nurse frowns and tries again. Higher. The doctor asks about stress. Zora lets out a laugh that isn't a laugh. She explains enough to draw the outline. The doctor listens, then becomes very clear. Bed rest, feet up. No stress when stress can be avoided. More checks. Close monitoring. The words risk to you and the baby rearrange the room. This is no longer about winning an argument. This is blood pressure. This is oxygen. This is life. Zora nods and wipes her eyes. She promises to follow orders. She texts Evan from the parking lot and asks him to come home early. At home, the couch becomes her island. She stacks the lawyer's folder beside the timeline. She breathes in for 4 and out for 6 until the spin eases. The phone blinks with more family commentary. She flips it face down. Tonight, she will measure victory in heartbeats, in quiet hours, in the small, fist-sized hope under her palm that needs peace more than pride. Tomorrow, the proof can come. Today, she chooses to protect her child. The posts start vague and sharp. Some children forget what their mothers sacrificed. Hearts and broken hearts stack under the lines. Cousins echo the mood. Old friends ask what happened. An aunt writes about loyalty. An uncle writes about ingratitude. No names, but everyone knows. Zora screenshots everything. Timestamps, comments, reactions. She builds a quiet file while the room on the internet takes sides. Some message her privately to ask for her version. Some send prayers with a side of doubt. Others pile on with soft knives. Maybe you misread the tone. She just loves tradition. Zora does not argue online. She refuses to wrestle in public. She texts a few lines to the people who matter. We asked for proof. We set simple terms. We were refused. The words are calm. The facts are clean. Still, the sting lands. Reputation is a river in a family. It carries stories fast. She puts the phone face down and rubs her temple. She is not only fighting a person. She is pushing against a chorus. Social proof can crown a lie. She will need stronger proof than likes to turn the tide. Earlier, before the doctor's orders, she had stopped by the house to grab a sweater. A week later, she stops by the house to pick up a sweater she left behind. The living room glows with afternoon light. On the coffee table sits a velvet box. Marlene opens it with practiced pride. Inside rests a sapphire pendant, cool and deep. "For the first granddaughter," she says, and she turns to Sable with a smile that feels ceremonial. Zora's hand goes to her belly by reflex. Early in her pregnancy. No one asks her to sit. No one acknowledges the timeline written in her blood. Sable lifts the chain and holds it to her throat. The stone catches light. The room claps in small, polite bursts. Zora hears the message behind the gift. Legacy is not only love, it is gatekeeping. It is who gets to belong on paper and in jewelry. The pendant is a verdict dressed as tradition. She thanks no one. She excuses herself and steps into cold air. The door clicks behind her and the sound is final. In her mind, the sapphire stops sparkling. It becomes a shard. Later, she will learn that even symbols can be called back when truth arrives. Back at home, Zora sorts mail on the counter. A thin envelope slips free from a stack of flyers and bills. It is addressed to the house. Inside sits a pale receipt with neat print. Key duplication, front door. The name below it makes her throat go dry. For Sable Voss. The date is 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. She reads it twice. The paper feels heavier than it is. She whispers to herself, she had a key, by design. The words settle into her spine. This was not nostalgia. This was access, planned and paid for. Zora slides the receipt into the growing file with screenshots and timelines. She adds a note in the margin. Pattern, consent to enter, boundary breach. She feels the difference a document makes. Stories can argue. Paper does not blink. She texts a photo of the receipt to Violet. Found this. Violet replies with a single line. Keep everything. Zora nods even though no one can see. The file is no longer a comfort blanket. It is a shield. It will matter when lines must be drawn with more than hurt. Early morning knocks shake the door. Arthur stands on the porch with tired eyes and a folder under his arm. He sits at the kitchen table like a man who has rehearsed an apology in his head all night. He opens the folder and slides out bank statements with highlighted withdrawals. Hundreds at a time. Sometimes thousands. The totals climb into tens of thousands over 3 years. Money moved to support Sable. He does not defend it. He says he did not look closely before. He says he believed excuses. He says he was wrong. Then he takes out printed messages, lines from Marlene to Sable about acting fast, about reminding him, about pregnancy as strategy. The words turn Zora's stomach. They also steady her. The mask slips. The plan is visible now. Arthur's hands shake as he speaks. He calls it obsession. He calls it sickness. He calls it his failure to stop it. Zora listens and writes the date at the top of her notes. She underlines it twice. He asks for forgiveness he has not earned yet. She does not grant it, not today. But she thanks him for the truth. Truth is oxygen in this house. That afternoon, an email arrives with a subject line that reads, I'm sorry. The body is long and uneven. Sable writes that she is not pregnant. She writes that she let herself believe a lie because it served her. She says Marlene pushed. She says Hope pushed harder. She admits the scheme. Announce a pregnancy. Force a choice. Shatter the marriage so the past could breathe again. Zora reads it aloud until the words blur. Shame climbs her throat. Anger crowds it. Relief flickers behind both and refuses to settle. She forwards the email to a group thread with family addresses. No commentary. Only the truth attached. Replies ping in waves. Some apologize with shock. Some defend, softening the harm into misguided love. Zora does not argue. She builds her folder. She breathes. She names what happened in plain language inside her head: manipulation, collusion, fraud of the heart. She closes her laptop and sits very still. The world has not righted itself yet, but the floor stops tilting. She has the receipt. She has the messages. She has the confession. For the first time in weeks, she can see a path forward that is not guesswork. Evan forwards the email to the entire family thread. He adds one line above it. "This is what happened. If you defend it, you will not have access to us or our child." He hits send and sets the phone down. The replies arrive like hail. An aunt apologizes and says she was wrong. A cousin says love makes people do messy things. Another cousin calls Zora sensitive. An uncle demands they keep it private. Evan does not argue. He replies once more to the whole list. "No contact with anyone who excuses this. Blocked if you do." Then he starts blocking. The thread thins. The silence after each block feels brutal and clean. Zora reads the apologies and the excuses. Her stomach twists at the soft words that try to smooth harm into misunderstanding. She closes her eyes and breathes. The truth is public now. The line is drawn, not to shame, to protect. By night, the list of safe people is shorter and stronger. The family has split, but so has the weight on Zora's chest. Moral ground is not lonely. It is solid. The next morning, Evan emails his boss and asks for leave. He explains as much as he must. He comes home with groceries and a simple plan. He turns off notifications for everyone but a handful of names. He blocks numbers that keep ringing. He sets tea on the table. He makes soup and keeps it warm. He brings Zora water and a notebook for any questions that rise. He rubs her feet when the cramps flare. He reads baby articles out loud and laughs at his own highlight marks. At night, he talks to their daughter through Zora's belly. He tells her about a backyard swing he will hang. He promises to learn braids. He promises to show up. Zora watches the pattern build. No speeches, just small, repeated acts. Filters on the phone. Meals at the right hour. Calm in the room when her pulse jumps. She did not ask to be lifted. He lifts anyway. For the first time since they married, she feels like the center of a plan. Not an interruption, not a debate. A priority. They sit with Dr. Lucy in a quiet room. Zora names her anger, not only at Marlene, at years of Evan standing small to keep the peace. She lists the moments she swallowed pain so he would not face conflict. Her voice shakes. She keeps going. Dr. Lucy listens and turns to Evan. She asks about childhood, about arguments that were never allowed to be arguments, about memory corrections, about rules that made feelings unsafe. Evan speaks in short bursts. He describes a mother who rewrote scenes and called it love. He describes doubting himself by reflex. Dr. Lucy puts language to it. Gaslighting, enmeshment, a trained reflex to defer. She turns back to Zora. "This does not erase the harm," she says. "It explains why he missed the cues." Explanation is not absolution. Zora nods. She understands. She does not forgive. Not yet. On the drive home, the anger feels cleaner, less barbed. She is still hurt. She is less alone inside it. Evan squeezes her hand at a red light. He says he will learn new reflexes. She says, "Good. Learn them where it counts." That night, Evan writes a letter to Marlene. He chooses plain words and short lines. He sets terms without decoration. 6 months of therapy with a licensed professional. Proof of attendance. A direct apology to Zora that accepts responsibility without blame shifting, or if you felt. No more comments about Zora's taste, standards, background, or where she belongs. No more keys for Sable. No more invitations. No more triangulating through relatives. He adds a final condition. Any contact will be supervised and brief until trust is rebuilt. He signs his name and dates it. He prints a copy for the folder and mails the original with the delivery confirmation. Zora reads the draft before it goes. Each sentence feels like a plank laid over a hole. Not rage, structure. She adds one line. Any violation resets the clock. He nods and includes it. When the receipt pings, they file it with the email, the screenshots, and the locksmith slip. The paper stack looks small. The power in it does not. It says what they will and will not live with. A week later, a thick envelope arrives. Marlene's handwriting on the front. Inside are 3 pages that call Zora divisive, ungrateful, manipulative. The letter praises Sable's class and fit. It calls the boundary letter cruel. It frames therapy as an insult. It ends with a threat to tell the family everything. Evan reads it once, aloud, without raising his voice. He does not rebut a single sentence. He slides the pages into a clear sleeve and places them in the folder under harassment. He writes the date in the corner. He closes the folder and exhales. Zora waits for his anger to flare. It doesn't. He is past arguing with a storm. He is cataloging the weather. The difference steadies her. The old door is there, but it is locked. He will not walk through it just because someone is pounding. They eat dinner and talk about stroller wheels. The letter sits on a shelf, powerless for now. Boundaries do not silence others. They teach you who cannot hear you, and they keep your own house quiet enough to heal. The knock comes on a weekday afternoon. Tears on the porch. Pleas in the doorway. Zora stays seated. Evan reads from the letter he sent. No contact, no entry. He closes the door. The next morning they file. Screenshots, the confession email, the locksmith receipt. The clerk stamps each page. A judge signs a restraining order. 500 feet, clear as glass. When they get home, the house feels wider. Silence has space again. That evening, Arthur arrives with a small box in his pocket. He asks to speak, eyes red and steady. He sets the sapphire pendant on the table. "I asked for it back," he says. "Legacy starts with respect." The line lands like a bell. Zora looks at the stone and feels the charge drain from it. It is no longer a crown. It is only a gem. She thanks him without a speech. He nods and leaves them to their quiet. The folder on the shelf has weight now, not just paper. Boundaries backed by law. Symbols corrected by truth. The house exhales. So does she. At 20 weeks, the cuff tightens and releases. The number is good. The nurse smiles and tries again to be sure. Still good. The doctor congratulates her and reminds her to rest. Zora laughs through a few happy tears. The sound surprises her. It has been months since Joy arrived without apology. On the drive home, she watches trees blur and thinks about what protected her. Not a plea. Not a performance. Boundaries. A file of facts. A decision to step out of the storm. She places a hand on her belly and whispers thank you to her own steadiness. At home, she eats without a knot in her throat. She naps. She wakes to a clean quiet. She sits beside the folder and does not open it. She does not need to today. When night comes, she sleeps before worry can find her. She dreams of a front door that locks and unlocks for the right reasons. She dreams of a table where her food is served and her name is not a question. She wakes lighter. Her body believes it. They gather in the backyard with only the few who stood tall when it counted. A small cannon pops and a cloud of pink hovers in the sun. Cheers rise, soft and bright. Evan cries without shame and kisses Zora's forehead. They say her name for the first time out loud. Rose, after Zora's grandmother, a root and a bloom in one word. The next week, Evan updates forms, emergency contacts, medical directives, the will from years ago. He crosses out old names and writes new ones. He adds language that makes their intentions iron. No guardianship for those who ignore boundaries. Paper that cannot be sweet-talked. Zora folds tiny onesies and smiles at how real they look. She texts a photo to Violet. She texts another to Arthur. She sets the sapphire in a drawer. It belongs to a different future now, one that starts with respect. They eat cake left from the reveal and talk about rocking chairs. They do not mention the past for a whole evening. It stays outside the fence. Asiru, the air is gentle. The pink stain fades from the grass. Labor starts in the blue hours before dawn. It is long. It is honest. Zora breathes and swears and laughs when the nurse cracks a joke. Evan stays at her side and counts and counts. He tells her she is made for this. He tells her he is not leaving the room. He keeps his word. By afternoon, their daughter arrives. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. A cry like a string pulled clean. Zora feels the world shrink to a point of light on her chest. Evan's tears fall onto their daughter's hat. He whispers, "Hello, Rose," as if the name could bless the air. Arthur visits later with a small pink bear. He asks permission to come closer. Zora nods. He holds Rose the way a man holds a second chance. He leans in and speaks to her in a voice that breaks. He promises to protect her from the kind of control that hurt her father. Zora watches his hands and knows the promise is real. The line did not just divide a family. It remade one. The room glows with quiet vows. She does not win because she argued best. She wins because she chose truth over noise and boundaries over begging. Money can buy applause. Status can stage a story. But safety is not for sale. Love that holds its shape is not for trade. The right to speak and be heard is not a favor. Zora looks back and names what saved them. Evidence. A line in public. Help that did not ask for credit. A partner who learned new reflexes when it counted. A father who chose respect over comfort. She looks forward and names what will keep them. Clear doors. Clear tables. A child who will grow up knowing where she belongs. If this touched you, write, "I choose peace" in the comments. Share this with one person who needs a line to stand on. Subscribe to stay with this story. One day, there may be a knock and a sincere apology on the other side. If that day comes, you will see what they decide. For now, the house is quiet. The baby sleeps. The lesson holds. Boundaries make room for love.